It's April 2nd, 2020. We're going to talk about the coronavirus on a geopolitical level with Hrvoje Moric from, I think, Kazakhstan. That's where he usually is. And I don't think he can escape Kazakhstan currently. So this is Potkaars, pot with candle in Dutch. Phonetically, it's a podcast, so that's what it is. And that's me, Rico Brouwer from the Netherlands. That's my friend Hrvoje Moric.
Hey, I don't have a candle, but I have my freshly obtained COVID 1984 card. So.
Oh man! All right, so let's start there. So, but you are in Kazakhstan, right? This is a Kazakhstan COVID-19 card.
Yeah, I'm in Kazakhstan. I was supposed to fly to North America a few weeks ago, but everything got canceled, locked down, no trains, no planes. So I'm stuck here.
Okay. So before we go to the oh God, show me that thing. It's like a real the quality of it is like a bank card, right? It's really plastic and printed out.
No, it's a very cheap plastic, and it's written in Russian and Kazakh, and it basically says we're only allowed to go to the supermarket, the pharmacy, or the bank on even days, because my apartment's even where I live, I guess, on even, and then we can only go on the back 15 times in a month. So one person from the household can go only one with the card, and there will be police outside, I guess, stamping the card. And it's really, I love science fiction, I love video games, all that stuff, and I can't believe I'm living it
is a different matter. You like it in the computer, to be in the computer, right? Maybe with exactly. The 3D goggles on, that's cool. But okay, so let's go. Let's. They don't have. Is there another country currently having COVID-19 cards issued?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I'm hearing. I don't even know if they need to. I mean, we know how it is in China. They have the whole social credit score system, facial recognition, tracking with the apps. Australia just announced the $11,000 fine and jail time if you break quarantine. Russia just announced $4,000 fine if you I guess break quarantine. Canada, I think, did $1 million fine. And I just heard from my other home state in Mexico yesterday, they're closing down all non-essential shops. So it's going pretty much across the board.
Okay, you're in Kazakhstan. I've never been there. And every time I talk to you, so this is like the third or fourth time that we're talking together, I go, oh, where was it again? Oh yeah, okay, to the side of China, underneath Russia. Like okay, there you go. And then and I went looking for how many people are living in over there. It's like it's similar in people living in Kazakhstan from the Netherlands. So there's 17 million here in Europe. Kind of the same with you, only it's way bigger. Okay, how bad is coronavirus in Kazakhstan?
It's not bad at all. I think the latest number is 400 in the entire country. Just remember, it's a big country with a small population. So in general, spread out the population, but it's about 400. So
400 of what? Because there's different kinds of numbers going on. People dead or
I
infected?
think it's no. I think it's 400 infected. I'm not sure about the deaths. Those I think are probably not above 100. I mean, probably in single or double digits.
So the country so I'm not criticizing their approach. So let's talk about their approach in a moment. But the country hardly hit at all is taking is printing ID cards or whatever, plastic cards, and restricting you from leaving your house. How is the common Kazakh responding to these cards?
Well, I'm not just the common Kazakh. I'm feeling from the people that I talk to who live anywhere from US to Europe to Australia, who are also I think everyone's just like willingly accepting all of this and buying into the mainstream narrative. And so everyone's just going along. And I think here it's the cultural history, with the Soviet Union, you just you do whatever the government tells you. And so, but I think this approach, I mean, it's less, my opinion in general, it's not just in Kazakhstan, is that it's less kind of to do with the virus and more maybe because of what's coming with the economic situation, possibly civil unrest and things like this, and other agendas that are at play. And I think also countries, governments don't want to be like shamed, that, oh, you've got all these cases and then, you didn't handle things properly. But I think the cure is way, it's like cutting off all of your limbs, to
save the central part of the body, maybe. Okay, so not everybody is going to be watching this, is going to be aware of this, so they should see the previous recordings that we made, because they're very interesting conversations, especially the way we connected. You were a student of Mr. Alfred de Zayas back in the day, and I met him with regards to the Catalonia situation in Spain, and he's a very he's fighting for human rights, and he was a special rapporteur back in the day for United Nations. So that's how I connected to you. You host the Geopolitics and Empire podcast, and it's one of the few podcasts I listen to every episode. So that's very informative, and I like it especially because it's like you stick to facts. you don't go into the theoretical stuff of what might be or what could have or all those things, and you find knowledgeable people on geopolitics and empire. So the other day I heard you talk to William Engdahl. Now I ran into him on a 911 convention in 2016, or 15 years after the day. It was somewhat uncomfortable because there's all kinds of stories going around about the 911, what caused it, and what were the effects on how was government response. But I found Engdahl to be very informed, and what I totally agree on with him and so many others is that stuff changed after 911. That's when the big surveillance state, if you will, started. That's when the NSA program started. That's where whistleblowers like Mr. Thomas Drake come from, and later Ed Snowden. It all started, in my opinion, from 911. Now, fast forward to today. You talked to William Engdahl on coronavirus. What's your impression of what he said there, and what was the content of your podcast there?
Well, we looked at the similar events that happened as precursors to 9/11, and I'll add a little bit more beyond what William said. But I mean, there was a great article written by a journalist called Whitney Webb that was just released, and she goes back further. So if you go back a little bit further, before 9/11, you had in the summer of 2001, the U.S. government running these bioterrorism, biowarfare exercises, simulation war games, and it was called Dark Winter. And people can go back and read that script. They can find it online. It was together with John Hopkins and all these kinds of players. And a lot of those people who were part of Dark Winter are still in power, were in the administration when 9/11 happened, and some of them are still here today in the Trump administration. So you had this, 2001 warfare exercise. And so what happened last year is very interesting. I kind of made a list here. And I just discovered these things a few days ago. So you had last year in 2019, from January to August 2019, the U.S. ran Crimson Contagion, which was a simulation exercise for a flu-like influenza that originated in China. And then we had the event 201, which was in October, 18 of 2019, which was another pandemic simulation specifically on the coronavirus with John Hopkins again, Gates Foundation, U.S. military.
World Health Organization, I think, United Nations. So the big ones were in there. It was a real official big thing and public.
Yeah, and forget some of the points that William pointed out. But then that was the same time, same day that in Wuhan there were the World Military Games being held, where thousands of countries. Many countries, there were like 10,000 people attending, I think, and many countries sent soldiers as part of this like military war games. And China has then accused possibly the U.S. of bringing this possibly this coronavirus bioweapon to these Wuhan war games. But then something interesting I just found out again, September 2019. Right before these war games, in Wuhan in military games. The same people organizing that event in September had a exercise in Wuhan that specifically mentions coronavirus again. So you see the US and China both running these pandemic simulations last year. And this is really strange. You know, this is the same thing what happened with 9/11. Right before 9/11, the Pentagon was running dozens. I think someone made a list up to 40 or 50 war games, many of which were simulations that actually happened on 9/11. So something really, you know, is not right here. And I spoke, the interview I'm going to post hopefully today or tomorrow was with academic Dr. Piers Robinson, and he wrote an article on Off Guardian, and he calls, is Corona the new 9/11? You know, is it a new deep event that's going to take away our civil liberties and many other things? And as you said, we're starting to see it's like 9/11 on steroids on a global level, and it's astonishing to witness.
There you go. We still don't know, even though it's been investigated and there's an official storyline, but I don't feel I know what actually caused or took place at 9/11. However, what we do know is what happened as a consequence, right? That's in my tune. That's George Bush going, either you're with us or you're with terrorists. So every country and every nation, every region now has a decision to make. Either you're with us or with the terrorists. And that's when the war on terror, as he called it, started. And no, let's fast forward to today. Now, I don't know, and you're hinting on, I know what you're hinting on. I mean, if you're exercising all year long, that's cool. The fire brigade exercises all year long to prepare for the big fire. So that could be the case that they're just preparing for what they know to be inevitable. However, were there coronavirus exercises in 2018, 2017, 2016? Do you know? 2015, 14? Is this a yearly thing? If that's the case, well, then it's just proper preparing. However, if it's just 2019, ending in November, and then this thing starts, I hear where you... But the consequence of this infection is that you now have a plastic card in Kazakhstan. So talk me through a supermarket visit in Kazakhstan. You go there, you go shopping. What happens?
Well, before I thought I would read this quote that I dug up from a French major called Pierre-Henri Bunel, who references 9/11. And I think as I read this, replace Al-Qaeda with coronavirus, and then replace war against terrorism with war against infectious disease. So this French soldier, after 9/11 happened, says this. He says, quote, "The truth is, there is no Islamic army or terrorist group called Al-Qaeda, and any informed intelligence officer knows this. But there is a propaganda campaign to make the public believe in the presence of an identified entity representing the devil, only in order to drive the TV watcher to accept a unified international leadership for a war against terrorism. The country behind this propaganda is the US, and the lobbyists for the US war on terrorism are only interested in making money." And so, I don't know, that's a powerful quote for me that has relevance today.
So what I see we'll get back to your supermarket in a moment. I want to compare real life experiences in the street, in where you are and where I am. But let's dig in deeper what you just touched upon. So after World War II, we started the United Nations. Like, as a global society, we started United Nations. We tried that after World War I. There was the League of Nations. Well, that like kind of worked for a couple of years. Then some countries didn't follow it, and then that failed. And that led us to World War II. After that, we started United Nations. Now, in that thing, a few very big stakeholders are on even ground in the Security Council. I mean, you all get the veto. And the downside is you don't get anything done because there's always somebody opposing. The upside is you don't get the power play. You don't get everybody involved unless they're all in agreement. Now, we've been picking a fight with Russia for a while, we as in the West. And we've been picking a fight against China, we as in Trump with his administration in a trade war. We're definitely picking a fight with Iran. Well, they're not in the Security Council, but Russia and China are. They're taking the same measures. Every single country in the world is taking the same measures. Venezuela is being accused now of drug trafficking. Bolsonaro is in on it. doing the same thing, even though he started differently. Every single country, even though they're adversaries, how do you explain that every country is doing the same thing?
I mean, it's very hard. As you say, we try to stick to facts, but then, I mean, things just don't add up. And there, I think that I kind of look at it, what's the end, reverse engineer the path to there. And from my point of view, you know, for the last 15 years, I've been saying there's this drive ultimately for these power elites, global power elites, to get to global government, to control the world, literally, because now we have the technology to do that. You know, the Roman Empire could not take over the entire planet, but now with this technology that we have and globalization, it can be done. And I found a report recently from a credible institution. I actually interviewed the author of the report, Phil Torres, which covers existential risk. And they talk about a future, you know, to solve these big problems like international terrorism, climate change, pandemic. We need a global institution. And in that report, they say we need to have a global government. And one of their versions of this global government is based on algorithm. They call it algocracy. So that we will have mass surveillance that will be programmed, I don't know, with a trustworthy algorithm that will surveil everybody. And this algorithm, big tech, is going to run the global government. And this is from, again, this is no conspiracy theory. It's in plenty of these academic reports. And so this is kind of like the goal. And then you see, how are we getting there? I mean, I don't know. Or do they have these elites or corporations in each of these countries bribing the politicians? I mean, that part is hard to explain, but you can kind of see where we are going. And it seems like China is the model. China is exporting, the Chinification is happening now to us, where you see in in Italy and Spain now, they're having these drones follow people on the streets, and the internet is being censored in the West, and we're starting to get like reputation credit scores in the West. And so you see this technocracy from China now going global. And I don't know, how would you find that missing link? Why is the Russian government doing it? You know, why is every government doing it? I mean, I guess they have a lot of financial interests and they get a lot of control. So it's like,
yeah, so they like control just like everybody else. That would be your answer then,
I suppose.
So I'll start with an example in the Netherlands. So when I go supermarket shopping, I did that the other day. So my wife and me, we decided to go together. We both had our little list of stuff we wanted. We went there. However, you're not allowed in together. There's only one per cart. You're mandatory using a cart, and only one adult per car. So I was first, so I got my car, went in. She was stopped. No, you're together, so you can't. Okay, I'll have a car then. No, you can't have a grocery cart because you're together. So she was waiting outside. She wasn't let in. So that's the Netherlands, and people are okay with that. So I'm the annoying guy trying to see what happens when I pay cash, right? So, but I'm corrected by people in line saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. That's you don't want to affect people. You don't want to use cash. Aren't you listening to the news? I mean, it's been all over. You should know this by now. And look at the roll banner in front of the supermarket store. They're asking you not to use cash. So it's kind of rude what you're doing." So that's the Netherlands. How was your shopping experience?
In Kazakhstan, I mean, it's still pretty normal, but these effects go Monday. They go into effect Monday. So Monday, you know, only one person from the household can leave with the card. And so far in the supermarket, it's normal. You go into the supermarket, you can pay with cash. Because, I mean, think about it. Europe is more of the developed world, and I guess, you know, Kazakhstan is more developing. So in a place like Netherlands, you will have more people with, you know, comfortable with making online purchases and using their cards. Yeah. And here it's still more of a cash-based system. But I think this is one of the goals. This is what William talks about. This is in their papers, academic papers of these global institutions. The WHO and the UN are talking about it. I think we're going to a cashless digital society, like Sweden almost has. And, you know, cash is going to become extinct. Everything is going to be digital with our apps. and they will have full control. This is one reason at any supermarket, even here in Kazakhstan, they ask you for those discount cards, right? When you make purchases, you get a discount, but they have everything you purchase, they have a database of, and then they can sell that to advertisers or whoever. So I don't want the supermarket having a list of all the groceries that I buy. So I always am willing to pay extra just so they don't have to pay for my privacy. But then, they really try to get you. They look at you like you're crazy. Why wouldn't you want this discount card? And I can't explain because my Russian is not very good. So I cannot explain to them. I want my privacy. And they really try to get you to use this.
So if you don't have the plastic cards and it's a cash-based society still, they could change that the other card that you just mentioned, the discount card, could that be transformed into a debit card or something, you think?
Well, I think eventually when there's no cash, you will use your debit card and they will have a record of all.
The issue that I have here is the eventual part. So you were talking to William Engdahl, and please tell me his reflection on this. Things are moving so fast now. It's like it's been 2 weeks, and people in the line at the supermarket are talking to me like, keep your distance, don't pay cash, and we're just correcting each other, just like the Dutch were known to do during World War II, right? So the society has changed like overnight. But there is no digital cash just yet. So what are they going to replace my money with then, and your money?
Well, I mean, all the countries now are making digital currencies. They call them central bank CBDCs, central bank digital currency. If you go research, you'll find that many countries they're well underway. France is already testing. Canada, USA, Kazakhstan a few years ago proposed a Kazakh cryptocurrency called G Global. So the governments are already testing this. China seems to be the one that's most advanced in this. So in the US recently, they've already started the digital dollar, they call it. So I think essentially they will slowly wean out cash. And in any case, I think most people in the developed world are mostly using their credit, debit cards, and just smartphones. They tap at Starbucks, you just tap your smartphone to pay. This sort of thing. So I think eventually, here's another example. What just happened recently in Kazakhstan, in my city here. The buses. So the buses, they just quickly, we didn't have I came here 3 years ago, there were not that many buses. So in the span of 3 years, they set up a whole bunch of public buses and transport that go around the city. And they just installed these digital payment systems on the buses that are from China, Chinese made. And so people now can use their phone app, or they buy a card that they need to fill using their phone or computer, and they pay the bus fare with that. And it's like 70 tenge. And if you pay cash, it's double the price, 140 tenge. So it's already, like you see on the buses here, in the span of 1 year, they've digitized the public transport. And there were articles that are saying in the near future, they're going to install facial recognition cameras in the buses from China, that you just walk onto the bus and you must have an account already, and the camera will scan you and see it's you and deduct automatically from your account.
It's moving so fast. And to get back to the app development that you were talking about a moment ago, what I read is in India, if you're self-quarantined, so if you're at home being a good citizen, not trying to infect other people, you're just at home, you're supposed to call in with a picture and geolocation data. And if you don't, you get rounded up and be sent to one of the public quarantine facilities, and same in Poland and maybe other countries as well. So that's moving very, very fast as well. I researched cashless society in the Netherlands a bit. So I was in contact late last year with the Dutch Central Bank and asked, we Dutch will value our privacy and our being able to pay with cash. So who's guarding that? And now the Netherlands, no one is. So we're supposed to be up front fighting for these privacy enablers, but nobody's making the point that we need cash in our society just to safeguard some basic civil liberties that we have. Even the central bank, and they don't care. So they just monitor if cash is being used or not. And our grocery store association in the Netherlands, sorry for my translation of that thing, they were one of the first to make the point, say, oh, let's move cashless, so let's not infect people. Has anybody researched how long that virus actually stays on a coin or on? So there's all kinds of wild stories going around. It's never been researched, to my knowledge. Do you know?
I mean, I've just read a few articles that they will stay on, surfaces. But yeah, I can't really answer. I'm not an expert in that regard.
But people will believe it. We are all buying this. We're all buying this. We're all buying the numbers. We're buying that cash is transferring this disease, and we're buying that it's killing our society. Even though carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything, people just, they don't question the authorities on this issue. And if you try to bring it up with people, they look at you like you're crazy. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's some kind of Stockholm syndrome, and the numbers you say, I mean, things just don't add up. And, there was Wolfgang Wodarg, who was in charge of health for the Council of Europe 10 years ago with the swine flu fiasco, 2009. And, he revealed that they just faked the numbers. The institutions that we're supposed to trust fake the numbers. Robert F. Kennedy talks about this. A lot of credible people, scientists talk about this, that WHO is more than 50% funded by the pharmaceutical companies. And what Wodarg said was that the big pharma twisted the arm of the WHO to call a pandemic when it wasn't a pandemic. They sold billions and billions in vaccines that countries bought. And at the end of the day, I remember like Switzerland, they didn't use 80 to 90% of their vaccines. They had to throw them away.
Yeah, Netherlands, same deal in the Netherlands. And I have to say, back then, well, we were vaccinating everyone, right? It was on a global scale. We were all scared and everybody was getting a vaccine. The Netherlands bought them, and I was being a good citizen. I was in line with my baby back then. We had one kid at the time getting the shots. Well, what else are you going to do? I feel once a coronavirus is developed, so I want to stick to facts, but here's an emotional thing for just allow me for a bit. So whenever that corona vaccine is developed, like in 12 months from now, vaccination is going to be mandatory. You don't get to stand in line. You don't get to dodge the line. It's going to be and people are gonna not allow you to not want it. So back then I was voluntary. Now I don't want it anymore. But I'm made to do it. Or my shopping cart is disabled and I can't get groceries. Or am I exaggerating now?
Well, I mean, Bill Gates, I listened to his TED Talk that he gave a week ago, his remote TED Talk interview. And he, you can find a few sentences where he basically implies this. Again, we're not speculating. This is what Bill Gates said, that he has this group called ID 2020, and they're developing these digital certificates that are going to tell the authorities who has had the sickness and who has received the vaccine. And then he says, basically, we won't be able to travel if you don't have this certificate and I guess vaccine. And,
and chips. There's chips been developed. I don't know if you want to go there, but we're going to chip ourselves in a year from now. That was out in the news. Sorry that I interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, that technology is out there. Yeah, they're talking about inserting in your skin this kind of chip thing that will have a record of your vaccination. And, for me, one of the strongest arguments is this is like the Nuremberg Code. It's a violation of the Nuremberg Code. Nobody can have authority over your body except for you. What happened to my body, my choice, right? Everyone's all this abortion talk like, my body, my choice. Now we don't have a choice over our body, which is, something is just wrong here. And these vaccines don't undergo the testing. And we already know, Robert F. Kennedy's work, there's a lot of documentation that shows the corruption within the CDC and the government institutions and the vaccine process. They haven't done the safety. They haven't gone through the safety tests, and it's just a lot of corruption. And so this is, I don't know, this came so fast. I don't know how I would feel safest now being in Mexico. And now I'm just wondering now, how am I going to get from Kazakhstan back home to Mexico? If my employer says you need to take the shot, I said, I quit. I'm out of here. I'm not taking anything. You're not sticking me with anything. I don't care. And, how will I get home then? It's just crazy.
Okay, I didn't introduce you fully, but you were my guest on the New Year's Eve podcast, and you explained your history. So you're a Mexican, American, Kazakh?
Croatian.
Croatian.
Ethnically, I'm a Croat. So Croatian, American.
Mexican?
I have Mexican citizenship.
Your website.
But I'm living.
Huh? Your website is actually called Guadalajara something. What was it again?
Yeah, that was the initial when I started my podcast. I called it Guadalajara Geopolitics Institute, and I got a better name, Geopolitics and Empire.
There you go. So. But you do talks around the globe, and you have lived many places. Why Mexico?
Again, I just like traveling.
No.
Mexico.
It felt the safest. You want to go home. You want to be there.
Right now. One reason I left Mexico a few years ago was because of the security situation with the narcos. But now I'm realizing Mexico, if you compare to all the other countries, has more freedom. The people are going on about their lives a bit more normally. It's a good weather. You can grow food. And because the government doesn't function so well, you have more freedom. And so, that's I'd rather be in there where I have less government control over me than in another country where, they can do whatever they want with me.
Okay. I assembled some stuff that I wanted to throw at you. See how would you respond. You've lived in the United States. You've gone to school there. So I talked to a guy from New York the other day, asking him, so what's going on in your city? Because that appears to be the new epicenter, right? We had China, we had Iran, we had Italy, and now New York is apparently most severely hit globally. And so hospitals are crowded, and I was going, okay, are they really? Have you seen that? I mean, I see cooling trucks parking on. I watch the Twitters, right? I see what's happening on the social media. I see cooling trucks there for deceased New Yorkers. Is that real? So my question to you is, what's real anymore? What's happening? What's happening right now in New York? How many people are on the emergency rooms? How many people have died? How many people are sick? Do you know?
I mean, we're in the same boat. But again, it's like some people think that I'm saying no one's dying. It's like, the 9/11 attacks, people died. Yes. But I don't think the people they say did it really did it. That's why it's called a false flag. There's something else is going on. People died. Yes. And I think people are dying now. But we learn from the media manipulation. You can no longer believe anything in the media. It's so manipulated by the power elite. And, I'm getting different stories just like you, people from the U.S. who tell me, hospitals are full. Then I get former students of mine who are working in medicine as doctors. They're saying, in Mexico that all the people they treated with COVID just had like flu-like symptoms and that was it, like nothing, no big deal. I'm getting from doctors that I know. And so, and then you ask yourself that question, they have that footage bringing the dead out into the trucks. Why don't they do that with people, from in the past, before the coronavirus hit? They could have been showing the people who died from cancer or from whatever disease. You can really make a spectacle out of anything. So it's like you could show people being moved from body bags into trucks and saying they're dying from cancer or whatever, and everyone will freak out from cancer. It's like, why are they showing the bodies being put into trucks? That's kind of strange. And then you have people going around to hospitals, citizen journalists, and finding them empty from Germany to the US. And so I'm just I think we have to be skeptical, and I think it's hyped up to some degree. And so we cannot tell what's really happening. I don't think it's all fake, but I don't think it's as hyped. The truth is somewhere in the middle.
No, I totally agree. So in the Netherlands, there's supposed to be 1,200 people died from this virus up until now. We're recording this early April. I feel that's going to double before we get back to normal. But still, it's like in the range of a cancer or a flu or whatever. But it is in addition to what we would normally have. So this is a new thing, and it's in addition. But it's nowhere near anything like the plague back in the day with 40% mortality rate. So this is under 1%. And the question that I have is, okay, at what point would we start limiting fundamental basic human rights? Will we do that at 0.7% mortality rate of a new virus? Not in my book, but I don't know when this podcast is going to be taken off the air if you make that statement, or yours, you know. All right. So, how's schools? Do kids still go to school in Kazakhstan?
All the schools have been closed. So, no school, and we're doing distance learning. And so we're working from home, and the kids had a few extra weeks. Schools were closed, so there were no classes, and we were transitioning. And so starting next week, we're going to start doing online classes. But this is also kind of frightening. I just purchased the report from Martin Armstrong. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, yeah. $9.95?
Huh?
Was it $9.95? Was that one just released yesterday?
I just bought that today. And he's famous for, he has this computer program that forecasts cycles, economic historical cycles. He was put into prison by the U.S. government for refusing to give them this program on false charges. And he has the documentary film, The Forecaster. So I just purchased this report. I'm going to read it because I'm on quarantine vacation, so I got time to read it. But it's really startling if you read the description. And he says, relating to schools, and this is something I've been talking about years, and I never thought it would come so fast. He says that pretty soon university professors and a lot of educators will become obsolete, that we're not needed anymore, just like many other occupations, that you have all the content will be put online, and the kids, it's like Coursera, the kids will just go online, read, watch the videos, do their assignments, activities, and you will need very few professors, and they have now advanced AI that can grade, at least in English, can grade essays for the most part, and things like this. And so it's really coming hard, this digital cashless system, the replacement of many jobs and occupations. And so, this is, I might not have a job for much longer.
No, yeah. So you're a professor, you're a teacher, I'm a teacher. And we are both aware that one of the traits that makes a good professor or instructor is that you make your students critical thinkers. You make them creative in solving problems. So the problem solving, that's where the real teachers stand out. If they can get that skill into the students. And one of the ways to do it is to be inquisitive yourself and learn from the students just as much as they're learning from you. So it's an interaction, it's a social experience. If we're going to replace that with AI and with here's the information, have fun reading it, good luck, and we'll test you in a month, then we've killed education.
Well, there are other visions, more positive visions of this future AI system, saying that, that there still will be like teachers, but students will go more for the socialization aspect, that they still need to socialize. But again, that depends on the governments and the educational institutions. I'm like, will they want their students to be critical thinkers? I mean, in many countries around the world, the public school system, they don't want that. For a century, they've intentionally created a system for you not to be a critical thinker. So I don't think that's really going to change for the better.
Well, not too long ago, the whole world was afraid of environmental changes. Like we were just all going to be flooded, and we're going to heat up the planet with the CO2. So I decided to invite a environmental professor for an interview and discuss with him what he's worried about and what are the measures taken here and on a global scale. And especially I wanted with him to dig into critical thinking, because if there's one area that you're not supposed to be critical of, well, that's the environmental discussion. Well, up until 2 months ago or a month ago, it's all been replaced now with the coronavirus, and so I haven't invited him yet. I've still to read his book, but that's another area where you're not supposed to be critical, is it? Or if you are, you don't get a discussion on content.
Yeah, I mean, I taught a course as a professor in Mexico called Environment and International Relations. And I mean, when I looked at the scientific data, it just didn't add up. But what I did still as a professor, you know, one day we looked at all the scientific evidence that showed that there is no man-made global warming. And then the next day, we looked at all the scientific evidence saying that there is man-made global warming. So you have the two perspectives, which is the scientific approach. And let's discuss that.
Let's be scientists. Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. And, you know, Patrick Wood, who talks about technocracy, who I've interviewed, he, on his website, technocracy.news, I think he had a few really good articles where he discusses, you see, they're trying to get this global government, and they're trying to create a huge global problem to rally us around and to implement this like new economic system, this new technocracy. And so first, you know, they tried with international terrorism, but it seems like that wasn't enough to scare us. And so then we have the global warming. There was no warming, so they changed the name to climate change. And now they're doing pandemic.
This thing is working. This thing is working.
Yeah, and if you look at the policies that are now about to be implemented under the pandemic scenario, they're pretty much the climate change policies. You know, oil, I just read an article on The Guardian that said the oil industry may never recover. So that's effectively what the climate change movement wanted to do, to destroy the oil and energy system. And so, you know, I'm here in Kazakhstan, when the planes, if they start up again, the prices will be sky high for travel. Countries like Kazakhstan, they get most of their money for oil, will have a lot of reduced revenue. And so if you look at the policies now, it's pretty much the same policies that were for climate change that are going to be implemented for the pandemic. And he cited a EU minister who was talking about the EU Green Deal. And there was a quote that he said that it's the same as the pandemic agenda, and the EU Green Deal is the same. You can find the quote on his website. And so,
yeah, I don't take much pride, but let's come clean then. That new EU commissioner is actually a Dutch guy, Mr. Frans Timmermans. And well, I was happy he didn't get his plans in order. The thing is, he got the environmental agenda. Well, that's cool. I mean, I'm all for saving the climate and having a great living environment for everybody. That's cool. However, I feel tax money, additional taxing and money is not going to solve the problem. So we need to change behavior. But he's not the guy that's going to fix this. He's just he's a power politician trying to get tax revenue. So he wasn't getting his plans done. Then all of a sudden we have this coronavirus, and now all of a sudden nobody's flying anymore. You can't even get a plane ticket. You can't get to Mexico.
That's what they wanted. You know, they didn't want people to fly, to drive cars, to eat meat. They were making this lab-grown meat, telling us to eat insects. You cannot have children or very few children. I mean, the crazy list of the things the smart grid system in your home where they can, tax you if you use more energy than you're told you should be using, or they can remotely turn off your fridge. This has been reported in some countries, like, I don't know, England maybe have this. If you have the smart refrigerator with the smart whole system,
So they sell it to you when you're in the store, in the shop. You need a new fridge. You got the one with the IP address on it, and then in the brochure it says, well, it can order its own cheese or its own milk when you're out. Then the fridge is going to make sure that you're supplied. What they don't tell you is that the fridge can shut off or not give you your food if it's not mandated. Well, that's a smart. Okay, but you mentioned United Kingdom, so. In a sharp toughening of Britain's approach to the outbreak, on Monday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson closed down social life in the world's fifth largest economy and advised those over 70 with underlying health problems to isolate. Okay, that's sound advice. If you're old and if you're in a risk group, you might want to self-isolate, right? Now, I don't like the social isolation term that's being used everywhere. this is social interaction that I'm having with you. I'm not at risk from catching a virus. So you were joking that my webcam wasn't working a moment ago. Like, did it get corona? No. At home, talking to you through the internet, that's safe. Why are we calling it social distancing then? We should call it physical distancing or whatever. But we are social distancing from each other. My kids are being taught now at home, and they miss the interaction with their friends, and they miss the social interaction. So we're killing society right now. And but I agree with isolating yourself if you're in a risk group. That's cool. Now, in the United Kingdom, a modeling study was done by a team led by Neil Ferguson, professor of mathematical biology at Imperial College London. Now, Mr. Neil Ferguson predicted or projected that there might be up to 500,000 deaths in Britain. And then he revised his prediction to 20,000. That's like a factor of 25. However, Boris Johnson and the rest of the world based their policies on his earlier prediction of like 500,000 deaths. Did you know that story?
Yeah, and again, it reminds me of what I was saying earlier with the whole international terrorism scare, the climate scare, and now the pandemic scare. It's the same formula. If you go back again to 9/11 with international terrorism, who created Al-Qaeda? The U.S. Who funds ISIS and arms them and trains them? U.S., Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and this is sort of thing. In essence, as that quote I said earlier, an Iraqi general said, I think a year or two ago, if the West stopped supporting ISIS, they would be disbanded tomorrow in Iraq. And I interviewed a guy called Trevor Aronson, who published a book and gave a TED Talk, how the FBI since 9/11, there were never really any domestic terror attacks in the U.S., and that every case, when they catch this crazy guy who's about to set off a bomb, and they catch him in the act, the FBI, and say, oh, we got this domestic terrorist. Every single time since 9/11, it was the FBI undercover finding some, loser and pushing him, giving him money and saying, hey, let's go make a bomb attack. And then, that's a false flag. And then, so they're trying to hype this terror threat. And then you go to the climate predictions. They said in 1989 that by 2000 we're going to be submerged, and then in 2000 they said in 2013 we're going to be underwater. And all of the predictions never come out to be true. And now it's the same thing with this guy, from 500,000 to 20,000.
So literally yesterday, too late. I shouldn't use Twitter when it's way late. So it's way late. I made that comparison as well. Neil Stephenson looks like the new Al Gore. And I deleted the tweet because I don't want my Twitter profile to be deleted. So am I over-exaggerating there now or what?
No, I mean, it's the same formula, like I said.
So, how often are we going to have this conversation? And who's going to be delisted first, you or me?
I don't know. I just posted on my Twitter today. I did the first interview with Francis Boyle on the subject of the bioweapon and the coronavirus on January of 29. And a few weeks ago, YouTube deleted that. It had over 300, it had hundreds of thousands of views, and it was terminated by YouTube. But it was funny. Someone sent me a message, like an email, an anonymous email saying, please delete that interview, like asking me to self-censor. I'm like, are you crazy? Not all of my guests maybe are the best, but we're just asking questions. There's nothing wrong with that. And so now I got an email yesterday or today telling me to remove, please, I tweeted it. I said, please remove your episode with William Engdahl. Like telling me to delete my own. Are you crazy? Like, I'm not, what? But maybe they will delete it now, because that's kind of like the formula. They first tell me delete it. I don't delete it. And then YouTube will terminate it. So again, who knows? By the way, you mentioned censorship. The Brazilian president, Bolsonaro, Glenn Greenwald, just tweeted. I don't know if you caught that. Yeah. It appears Bolsonaro just had a few of his tweets deleted by Twitter, which would set the precedent that he's the first world leader now. Twitter, for the first time, has deleted the tweets of a world leader. Yeah,
and in my interpretation, he questioned, he didn't want to play along with the response by all the other world leaders, so he wasn't playing along. And he might be wrong, He might be totally wrong. I mean, but he is the leader of a country. So there's a lot of criticism on Trump. So many people call him wrong, but still he gets to say whatever the president wants to say, right? But he is so Twitter's. So why are we? No, we don't want to go there. You're still using YouTube, right? You're still using Twitter.
Yeah, I'm using it until I can't anymore. But I have all the backup channels, and now I haven't had time, but now I'm going to upload all of my material to those backups. So I believe they will take down eventually. Some of us, our channels on YouTube, and so we need to have those alternative sites there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an internet blackout ahead in the coming weeks or months, and then if the internet comes back on, it will be a different internet. Because one of the scenarios from that Rockefeller report talks about how each country is going to have its own like national internet. It's gonna be kind of not like how it is now, but we saw Russia doing the test recently of disconnecting Russia from the internet, and so maybe they will say we're transitioning to this, so each country is going to have kind of like the control over its own internet, and we will have a much more restricted internet in the future.
So to my knowledge, Russia was the only one that actually did this. Now the internet works with the way people use the internet. That's something.com or .nl or whatever is the top level domain. Now that's a global thing. That's DNS. That's a global thing. But Russia did a test and created their own isolated version of the internet, and that apparently worked, or at least their reports was that it worked. Well, here's the question, because many people, if not all, are still thinking or feeling that this might blow over. So we're going through a phase. But I would argue that we're going through a phase change, like wood, when you set it to fire, changes and doesn't change back anymore. It's not like a tree that blows, that moves in the wind. It's been set to fire and it turns to ashes. So we're not going to go back on that aircraft. But then, so I'm using you, yeah? So no offense. You're naive uploading your content to BitChute, or you're naive going to gab.ai or going to Mastodon or whatever as a replacement for Twitter, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, well, if I really believed it, but again, I'm doing it.
What else are we going to do?
What else can you do? I mean, what else can you do? Some commentators on my podcast say, "Oh, I'm like some gatekeeper or something." I'm like, come on, and like, what else can you do? And in any case, I will just speak more openly. I'm a Christian, and I believe in the Bible, and the Bible alludes to there eventually being this global totalitarian government, this global dystopian scenario, and from my perspective, it's like there's nothing you can do except believe in Jesus. He's your lifeboat, but this thing's going to come whether you like it or not, and you just try to do what you can do, speak out, investigate. But what else can we do? If they take down YouTube, okay, we have Gab, we have BitChute. If they do something with the internet, I mean, what else? I can't create my own internet. This is just the nature of the totalitarian dystopian system. There is a website that I like called epic.com, EPIK. They're based in the US, but they fight for like civil liberties. And when many web hosts refused to host Gab, Epic hosted Gab. So you have a few web hosts like epic.com that could maybe help you operate longer, but what else can we do? I don't know.
You mentioned religion. I'm not totally not religion. I was not religious. I was raised Roman Catholic, I believe. It's what it's called. So, but you bring it up. There's this difference between, or this fight between love and fear, right? And religious people would go, fear, that would be ego, that would be fear for yourself and your own future. And what are we going to do? We're going to shop for toilet paper. We're going to shop for food, or love, and that will be love for Jesus, like you just said. So what are we going to do? Are we going to love or fear? Well, I'm not going to go the religious path. But what we could do, at least not now, maybe when things go down the drain even more. But what we could do is oppose that social distancing thing. I mean, don't impose social distancing on me. We're human beings. We're social beings. So let's replace social distancing with social connection. That's what we did when we connected like a year ago and with New Year's Eve and right now. So maybe we should up that a bit. Do this more often.
Yeah, I think each person should protest in small ways. And I mean, think about it. It's very strategic. The power elites, the only way, people usually unite against evil. They need to be united. You need to have a group that comes together of the good guys. Unified, you have to work together against the bad guys. And so what are they doing? They're isolating all of us, so we cannot be...
There you go. We're just social distancing us. And how stupid are we to play along?
Yeah, and it's like Peter Hitchens just wrote a great piece, Peter Hitchens, that he says, we love Big Brother. And he said, for me trying to explain this to all of my fellow men, 99% who are just, freaking out and going along with everything, he's like, I might as well be reading Russian to a koala. It's like...
I like Hitchens, yeah. That's true. Okay, let's reverse that social distancing. Let's do social connection. Let's do you from Kazakhstan, me from here. Hitchens, he's doing this. Great to talk to you. Whenever you take the boat to Mexico, make sure to stop by the Netherlands and you stay here for a while.
It'll probably be a narco submarine.
Well, whatever. Take care, Hrvoje.
You too.
Yeah. Let's talk soon. That's long. Oh, well, there's positive stuff. There's Kim.com programming a new layer on the internet. There's privacy stuff going on as well. Okay, all the best, my friend.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Every nation and every region now has a decision to make.
You think I'm joking? Predator drones. You will never see it coming.
Laat staan dat ik kan ingaan over vuur.